Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going on quite a fascinating journey, I think, into traditional remedies. We're focusing on a plant you probably know, Calendula officinalis, Derigold.
Exactly. And our guide for this is William Boericke's classic homeopathic Materia Medica. What we want to do is pull out some of the really surprising, impactful insights from Boericke about calendula, its historical uses, why it was seen as such a remarkable agent, often far beyond just, a simple flower.
Okay, let's get into it then. Boericke, right off the bat, calls calendula a most remarkable healing agent applied locally.
Locally, okay.
Yeah, and he highlights it specifically for open wounds, parts that will not heal, ulcers. And he says it promotes healthy granulations and rapid healing by first intention.
Right, first intention. That basically means a clean heal, doesn't it? Minimal scarring, which is, well, quite something for a plant remedy,
It really is. And get this, he even describes it as hemostatic after tooth extraction.
meaning it stops bleeding. Useful.
Very. But what's really fascinating here, I think, is not just that it heals, but how it seems to influence the process.
Exactly. The Materia Medica notes its remarkable power to produce local exudation and helps to make acrid discharge healthy and free.
Healthy and free. So it's changing the actual gunk, for lack of a better word, making it less irritating.
That's the idea, yes.
Yeah.
It suggests it's not just a surface fix. It implies a deeper interaction, sort of nudging the body's own fluids and defenses towards a healthier state.
Okay, that's interesting in itself. But here's where, for me, it gets really surprising. Boericke's observations go way beyond cuts and scrapes. He links calendula to deafness, but not just any deafness, specifically when it's worse in damp surroundings and with eczematous conditions.
Okay, that's already quite specific. Dampness and eczema related to hearing.
But wait for it, the person with this kind of deafness apparently hears best on a train and distant sounds.
On a train and distant sounds, that is. Wow, that's incredibly specific.
Isn't it? How would you even observe that consistently?
Well, that level of detail is actually pretty characteristic of these older homeopathic texts. It's not just about the main complaint, like deafness, but the very particular way it manifests, the conditions, the modalities. What makes it better or worse? Like hearing better with the background noise of a train.
So it points to a pattern.
Exactly. It raises questions about how wide-ranging a single remedy's applications could be in this system.
Yeah.
And Burke doesn't stop there, does he? He mentions other things.
No, he doesn't. He talks about pain that's out of all proportion to injury. Neuroma, that's a nerve issue, right?
A nerve tumor, yes. Or a painful nerve condition.
And even paralysis after apoplexy, so after a stroke.
Again, it suggests calendula wasn't seen as just for skin, but for a whole constellation of symptoms that fit a certain profile, even neurological ones or extreme pain responses.
And if you're someone who really feels the weather changes, this might resonate. He notes a great disposition to take cold, especially in damp weather.
The classic damp weather aggravation.
Yeah, and generally being worse in damp, heavy, cloudy weather.
Yeah.
So if you feel rubbish when it's gray and damp, maybe calendula was the traditional thought.
It fits the pattern.
It's also tied to things like heartburn with horripilations.
Horripilations, goosebumps, essentially. Heartburn with goosebumps. Another peculiar combination.
And even warts at the os externum in females.
So, putting it all together, you see this comprehensive view. Symptoms that seem totally unrelated to us: wounds, deafness on a train, weather sensitivity, specific types of heartburn, warts. They can all point towards a single remedy like calendula in the homeopathic framework.
Right. And going back to the skin for a moment, beyond just open wounds, he mentions it promotes favorable cicatrization with least amount of suppuration.
Good scar formation, basically, with minimal pus. So clean healing again. He mentions it for superficial burns and scalds, and even erysipelas, which is a nasty skin infection.
So wrapping this up, what's the takeaway here? This dive really shows calendula's, surprising range, according to Boericke.
Absolutely. Its versatility is remarkable.
Yeah, he describes using aqueous calendula, marigolden, directly on all wounds, and even making a calendula cerate, like an ointment for burns, sores, fissures, and abrasions. It really was positioned as kind of a botanical first aid kit and more.
Much more than just a pretty flower in the garden.
Definitely. What a dive. From speeding up wound healing and stopping bleeding to these incredibly specific notes on deafness, odd pains, even how damp weather might affect you. Calendula, through Boericke's eyes, is just layered with historical application.
It really is. And it just reminds you how deep the traditional knowledge of these natural substances could go. The level of detailed observation is frankly quite stunning. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other common plants right under our noses might have this kind of rich, documented history of surprising uses if we just, you know, looked a bit closer?